So I'll just quickly state again, today is Friday, December 6th, 8:32 a.m. This is the public session of the Oregon Veterinary Medical Examining Board. The public session is scheduled to start at 8:30 and will continue to the end of business. Executive session, which happened yesterday, will follow today if we need to, but we will continue until the end of business. And the board expects to come out of executive session for all public session business and for the purpose of voting in the cases discussed yesterday during executive session and all applicable board business. So this morning I'll start with roll call. Director Peter Burns.
Present, thank you.
Thank you. Licensing Administrator Brooke Walker.
Present.
Thank you. Inspector Ingrid Nye.
Present.
Thank you. Investigator Janine Holland.
I'm here.
Thank you. Investigator Bertina Grajo.
I'm here.
Thank you. Assistant Attorney General Raul Ramirez.
Present. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for joining us today. Board members, Dr. Allison Lamb is here. Dr. Brett Hamilton.
Here.
Thank you. Miss Natalie Mayer Williamson.
Here.
Thank you. Miss Karen Pate.
Present.
Thank you. Dr. Katie Wallace. We didn't capture you, Dr. Wallace.
Here.
Thank you. And Dr. Max Rinaldi.
Here.
Thank you. Absent today is Mr. Brian Wadika and Dr. Reagan Borzek out of the members. We also have quite a few public members. Pete, would it be a good idea to go around the room, or there's quite a few today? I didn't know if that was.
Yeah, I think that'd be helpful for sure.
Wonderful. Okay, so I will start at the top of my screen. I apologize if that's different from your screen. I have, and I apologize if I butcher your name as well, Sharon Kofis. If you would like to unmute and introduce yourself.
Sharon Cops.
Cops.
Yes.
Thank you for joining us today, Sharon Cops.
Thank you.
Dr. Charisse Roth.
Hello, how's it going?
Good, thanks for joining us.
Of course.
Dr. Alexander McLaughlin.
Yeah, McLaughlin, thanks. Hi, I'm Dr. Alexander McLaughlin. I'm a business owner, I own Barber Vet in Southwest Portland. Thanks.
Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
I have a title of Sky Warrior on one of the pictures.
That's Tom Fender. I'm here.
Hi, Tom. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Christina Keith.
Morning.
Thank you. Charles Hurdy.
Yeah, good morning. Glad to be here today. Thanks.
Thank you. I have a title of EABOV.
Hi, this is Dr. Alseth. I'm a dairy consulting veterinarian. I cover actually internationally too, besides Oregon and Washington right now.
Thank you for joining us. Darcy Love.
Hi, Darcy Love. I'm a CVT in the greater Portland area.
Thank you so much for joining us, Darcy. Glenn Kolb.
Good morning. I'm Glenn with the Oregon Veterinary Medical Association. Thanks, Dr. Lamb.
Thank you all for joining us. We really do appreciate our public members joining in and getting to see some faces as well. I just really appreciate all the work that everyone's done for this meeting, both staff and board members. So I just want to take an opportunity to thank everyone as we're going into the holiday season. It's just wonderful that everybody's putting in such an effort to address the concerns of the board, and just wanted to share that thanks in regard. I will move down to topic number 4, which is our public comment. These are for items that are not on the agenda. I do want to remind everybody that comments are limited to 3 to 5 minutes. And there was a request to notify the board in advance if you wish to address the board. So I think we do have some public comments today. And Pete, do you want to tell me which one should go first? Because I don't get the list because I know sometimes the comments come in closer to the meeting.
Yeah, certainly. Thanks. And we have had a lot of outreach for wanting to participate today. So again, I reiterate what Dr. Lamb shared. I really appreciate all the public participation in our meeting. It's great to see. And so with that, we'll get started here. But we had a number of folks request to speak today, and some came in at the very last minute, honestly, which is fine, but we just want to accommodate as best we can. So, Mr. Fender, I know you and I had exchanged a little bit. Do you want to speak today? Do you want to start today with addressing the board?
Certainly. Good morning, Dr. Lamb and members of the board and other interested parties. I'm Tom Fender. I live in Tumwater, Washington, and I really wanted to talk to you a little bit about some of the policy issues that surround the situation regarding, for lack of a better term, dogs on the street. And in that regard, I've also included an experience with VCA Northwest and a Dr. D'Amico, where during a routine MRI, our dog ended up dead. I've supplied your staff with some of the specifics and all of the correspondence involved. I've tried to communicate with Dr. D'Amico regarding the situation, and I've been unable to reach her even though I have sent her certified letters, and I've only heard back from VCA, and VCA has been represented by Liberty Mutual, who's their insurer. This really, the case regarding Skeezix, which is the name of our dog, Sharon Copson, my dog, is kind of tragic because he had a brain tumor, which we were unaware of, but we took in for a diagnostic finding, and within roughly 30 hours, he expired. And you have a tremendous amount of confidence, obviously, from the legislature. Your enabling statutes give you a tremendous amount of discretion in how you apply the veterinary laws. And I did do a quick survey, 2023, the legislature spoke to the whole question of the abuse of animals and preventing animal abuse from escalating to abuse against humans. And I've had 2 rescue dogs, one of which includes Skeezix, that fit into that category. Dogs that are essentially emotionally tortured by the experience of being strays, ending up in homeless camps, and other unsuitable locations for an animal. And many of them are exposed to illegal drugs and end up, well, they're sort of like ACE's children, if you're looking for an analogy. They're difficult to deal with, takes a long time to get them to the point where they're comfortable around human beings, and in many cases, men who don't smell well. So in regards to Skeezix, we took him to the VCA facility on Southeast 82nd Street. We got him there at 9 o'clock in the morning, and they didn't begin the procedure until almost 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and the dog was discharged prior to complete recovery. The net effect of this, of course, was he didn't recover, and we have video recordings of a situation when he did get back to Olympia. And as you know, veterinarians are authorized, and the specific procedure in 686-030 regarding anesthesia. The question I think that this begs is your definition section regarding 686-010, ORS, I should say. What is a veterinary facility? Is it a hospital? Is it a clinic? And I noticed even amongst the board members, many of you have varying definitions. I think the public needs to know. And we're also going through a further transition where Main Street goes to Wall Street with investor-owned animal clinics. Nothing from Dr. D'Amico, all kinds of information from VCA. including a denial of liability. I mean, this is a res ipsa loquitur case. The facts speak for themselves. There's malpractice. Normal dogs don't die simply because they've had an MRI. And I would urge you to give serious consideration to fleshing out the statute in terms of veterinary facility, what it is, what it does, and is it a clinic, is it a hospital, or some other hybrid. I was under the assumption that this was a hospital because VCA holds itself out in its promotional literature as being both. And there's a right to know, and there's a right to know what kind of treatment that your dog's going to receive and what kind of aftercare the clinic, hospital, facility, whatever is going to provide. I don't want to wax on about what went on in the case. You have an investigative staff. We may take advantage of that opportunity, and the courts are a place for us to seek redress.
Mr.
But I would point
Fetter,
out,
Mr. Fetter, I'm so very, very sorry. I hate to cut you off, and I was trying to find a good little spot to where it was kind of a lull. But it has been 5 minutes, and we do have several other public comments.
okay,
I do want to express my strong condolences for the loss of your pet Skizix. It sounds like that was very sad, and I appreciate you coming to talk to the board today, and I apologize for our limited amount of time that we can provide to public members to speak. I do hope that you follow up with Director Burns, and I believe Director Burns, do you have a comment?
No, if I may, Dr. Lamb, thank you. Mr. Pender, yeah, I just want to reiterate that too. We've exchanged some communication, and I'd be happy to follow up with you directly on this. And again, my sympathies to you, and I appreciate you speaking to us today.
thank you, Director Burns, and thank you very much, Dr. Lamb. I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you this morning.
Thank you so much. Director Burns, do you have another public person who would like to speak today?
Excuse me. Yes, we do. We've confirmed with Dr. Earl Alseth that he'd like to speak today. Dr. Alseth?
Yes. Trying to start. Okay. Pardon my gym that I work out in, but this is my office also. In my practice, I've been licensed in 8 states and I work overseas in quite a number of different settings. I communicate with veterinary boards of governors in every state. And in this case today, I take my CE topics seriously. I will be contributing at least 60 hours this year for the 2-year, and very commonly I do over 100 hours of CE. So it's a big part of my practice. To make things relevant, I don't know if Brooke provided you with my email. It was just kind of a written itinerary, but if she hasn't, I'm going to read it to you, and it's there for you to fall back on in terms of my concern.
Dr. Alseth? Dr. Alseth?
Yes.
We do have that. We do have that document. We just received it late last night, early this morning. We could put that up on a screen share. I just want to let you know we haven't redacted emails or anything from it, but if you'd like us to, I could put that up and share it on screen.
If you're all looking at it right now, however, on your computers, whatever you find is easy, but we can run through the points quickly, and then you can refer back to them is the intent of how I present this.
Okay, I can provide it to the board members for their consideration. I'll forward it on to them so they can review that. Does that sound okay?
Thank you.
Thank
Okay.
you.
When I received your announcement or your reminder of renewal this year in early November, I saw something that was startling to me and concerning, and that was the unique CE requirements of antibiotic resistance and of analgesia and anesthesia. They were confusing as presented in that. So I started conversing with Brooke. She has all my emails and other things that I have captured and brought up to support this somewhat, both from your Veterinary Practice Act and from where I do my CE in terms of topics. But the biggest point here is that when we get these reminder notices, which had been postcards until maybe 2020, I had not noticed these things, but I went back and reviewed them. And in approximately 2020, you had the antibiotic resistance topic in there, but you did not list the analgesia and anesthesia topics, which I understand were approved or required starting 2015. It's no problem for me to have satisfied those in the CE I've done to date. But going forward for this year, it's not possible in the presentations and the material that I have accessible to have a meeting within the 2 months required to finish my submission of my renewal for this year on terms of the topic of analgesia and anesthesia. So that's the concern and the clarification that I think you need to make in terms of the presentations. So the questions that I'm jumping a little bit ahead of myself, but it's rewritten there for you, is that I do not know for sure what you mean by antibiotic resistance personally. Overuse of antibiotics is a huge topic, particularly at National Mastitis Council, in terms of udder health in cows. You all know we use a huge quantity of antibiotics there in the dairy practice. In terms of these topics, though, I approach it from responsible antibiotic use, which I seem to have agreement from both Brooke and Emilio that those are acceptable topics in terms of presentations. If we move to the analgesia anesthesia topic, I don't know whether you're requiring one or two things there. According to Brooke and Emilio, analgesia and anesthesia are one topic, but as you use the word "and," they appear as two. You might want to clarify that, I would suggest. Those topics to a dairy practitioner are not common at our elite meetings. AABP, Academy of Dairy Veterinary Consultants, and National Mastitis Council are the elite meetings I go to and spend my time at and do considerable CE, as I reminded you. So where I'm going here is if you're going to require those things, you need to perhaps give a link or some other way. This year, I'm going to go review a journal article to satisfy analgesia and anesthesia as a requirement. That's the only way I can get it done within this 2 month period, or relax that 2 month period requirement and put it for next 2 year cycle of CE. So I think the biggest point here is that different disciplines in practice have different focuses. Okay. And for example, my focus on responsible antibiotic use is huge in the dairy industry. Analgesia anesthesia shows up in terms of dehorning and castration techniques, but that water's long under the bridge and we don't talk about them anymore. Anesthesia is not used very much, maybe just sedation and tranquilization to do our work. Does anybody have any questions?
Thank you, Dr. Elsa, for bringing that to our attention and speaking today.
You're welcome.
Director Burns, is there anything else that we need to know at this time? I believe the board members will be forwarded the email directly so that we can review it.
Thank you. Yes, we have, I believe we forwarded that on, I asked Brooke to forward that on to board members. We can take a look at it, and if we want to address that in a future meeting, we can. I always welcome the opportunity to review rules and make those better wherever we can. So thank you, Dr. Elsa.
Great, thank you. I believe we have an additional public comment this morning.
I'm not sure if we have anybody that's actually let us know that they'd like to present something else, but I may have that wrong. Is there anyone else that had reached out to present information today?
Did we miss any other, Dr. Hurdy?
Yeah, I know, Pete, we've emailed several times over
Thank you.
several weeks. I don't know if this is the time or
Absolutely right. Yes, apologies, Dr. Hurdy. Yes, we had communicated that you had some information to share related to the VCPR work group, and we opted to share that during the public comment section. We'll have We'll have a summary statement later on in discussions and action items today related to VCPR, the work of the VCPR work group. But Dr. Hardy, we've communicated, and you do have some information you'd like to share with the board today during public comments. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and I can certainly do that now, or if you have a preference, I don't know if that's going to be open to discussion for public, but I certainly can just present a summary idea right now and then.
Now would be the appropriate time for that, Dr.
Okay.
Hardy.
Okay, great. Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate being able to speak today, and I appreciate being able to work on the work group. I'm the president of the OVMA and representing the OVMA today, and I'm a practicing veterinarian here in Oregon on the Oregon coast. Have been here for 18 years. What we at the OVMA just wanted to kind of put out there was a couple pieces of information as you all consider the rule changes related to the VCPR and telemedicine. And just wanted to make an emphasis point on a couple topics. The language, I know you all have it. I'll refer to it briefly in just a bit. But the OVMA, I would start with, we do support telemedicine. So I don't want anybody to think that we do not support telemedicine in its current form in Oregon. And we have for several years supported that. We just have supported that in the current rule setting, which allows for the establishment of telemedicine after an in-person physical exam or premise visit has been established. And so we are in opposition to the current rule as it sits, and for several reasons. One, just information I would want to put out there is that we did conduct a survey of Oregon veterinarians, and it was a rather robust group and a good response rate. And 76% of the surveyed veterinarians, those respondents, support the current telemedicine rule as it sits. Only 16% of the respondents wanted a change. And with this new rule, which allows for a virtual VCPR to be established, just over 70% of Oregon veterinarians do not support this, and only 22% were interested in any kind of change. And so my feeling is we do need to trust our Oregon veterinarians and their views on the topic, and creating this option for the virtual VCPR does not seem to align with the values of our veterinarians in general in Oregon at this time. We also feel that we really need to pay attention to the federal definition of VCPR and how that pretty much contrasts with the language of this rule, especially in the settings of prescribing medication. I would point out that we are also not having a rule that looks at a lot of the safeguards and the guardrails that we feel would be necessary for such a rule to be in place. If you look at the kind of the end of the rule, you can see where there's some incomplete comments about potential safeguards or guardrails. But I don't feel like there was a lot of meaningful conversation about those guardrails. Any concern that was brought up during the work group, I don't feel like we robustly discussed these situations, and we simply went down this path of really the most unregulated rule that would exist in the United States. I would point out too that the rule also does not align with, and I found this very interesting, the Virtual Veterinary Care Association's model telemedicine regulations. The Oregon rule does not have drug prescription limitations, and that is a recommendation from the Virtual Veterinary Care Association, especially when it comes to antimicrobials. Also, controlled substance prescribing was not meaningfully addressed. We also have it missing from this new rule, confidentiality, privacy, and consent documentation. So I think there's a lot of work that still needs to be done. And I'm concerned, and the OVMA is concerned that what we're doing here is producing a rule that allows for two different standards of care. And the regulatory mechanism there is challenging at best. And you know, in the federal rules, the federal laws that go against the state rules, I do feel like we need to trust the process that put those federal laws in place. They're there to protect human health, community health, patient health. And I just feel that, and the OVMA feels that we really need to look at guidance from those federal laws before we put something in play that is going to violate those laws. I feel like it creates a path for veterinarians to find themselves in a space where making sound judgment calls is going to be extremely difficult. I think there needs to be a really clearly spelled out guidance. The rule is very open to interpretation. There's a lot of language that I find to be extremely subjective. And if veterinarians knew they were violating federal law, I just feel like they're going to be not able to do this in a safe way. I just think it opens them up to
Dr. Hardy, I'm
illegal.
so sorry
turn it
to
over.
interrupt you. Yes,
No,
we've
that's
reached
fine.
the
I
max
appreciate. I
amount.
know there's a lot to say, but no, I appreciate Dr. Lim. Thank you, and Dr. Burns for allowing me to talk.
Thank you so much for coming and talking to us today. We appreciate your time.
Just to reiterate, Dr. Hurdy, thank you for sharing that today, and also your participation in the work group meetings. We'll talk a little bit more about that and recognize that work later, but really appreciate your input and sharing even more information here today and making sure that those things are heard too. Thank you.
Yeah, and if anybody looking at the decision algorithm would like more information or to have a conversation, I am always open to that and willing to communicate, because I do think there's a path forward. It's just I don't think that this in its current form is the path that we need to be on right now. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Well, Director Burns, do you have a comment?
I know I'm pretty sure that's everybody that's checked in on wanting to speak today officially, but we do have some other public participants, so I do want to make sure we reach out to them if they have anything they want to share.
Thank you. It looks like we have two people that have joined us. Dr. Emilio DeBess, if you'd like to say hello this morning.
Hi, good morning, everybody. I'm Emilio DeBess. Thank you.
Thank you. And Dr. Ryan Schultz.
Schultz, State Veterinarian with Oregon Department of Agriculture. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And did we miss anybody else for public comment this morning that hasn't had a chance to speak yet? You know, sometimes those emails, technology. All right, so we'll move on to item number 5, which is today's agenda and the public board meeting minutes from October 17th and 18th. Do I have a motion from somebody on the board to approve the agenda today and the minutes from October, or is there any comment about anything that needs to be updated in those minutes?
I so move.
Dr. Rinaldi moves. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Natalie Mayer Williamson seconds. All those in favor Dr. Hamilton,
Aye.
Miss Mara Williamson,
Aye.
Miss Karen Pate,
Aye.
Dr. Wallace,
Aye.
Dr. Rinaldi,
Aye.
Dr. Lamb, aye. Motion passes to approve the board meeting minutes and the agenda for today. Thank you so much. We'll move down to topic 6, which is an update from our state veterinarian, Dr. Ryan Schultz.
Yeah, good morning. So hopefully the Wi-Fi holds on for me. I'm at a meeting in Eastern Oregon right now, but a couple of updates going on right now. So we do currently have some rulemaking in process. We have 2 rules right now open for comment. They will be open through the end of the month. We will have hearings on in 2 weeks, I believe. Those hearings are posted on the dates and times, and links for those are posted on our website. But the first rule that will be updated is our reportable diseases list. We are adding a couple of diseases at request from either industry groups or livestock associations, mainly to our monitored list. And then based on overwhelming requests from the equine industry, we are going to be reclassifying both equine influenza and strangles as reportable diseases rather than just monitored diseases. That's been a request we've heard over and over the last couple of years. So the other big change that's happening to our reportable disease list is just a reformatting of it. Historically, we've listed diseases by predominant species, even though the diseases may be reportable in any species. So we are going to restructure that list and list diseases by their causative agent, by bacterial, viral, fungal, parasitic, to make it more clear that they are reportable regardless of species. The second rule that's open for comment right now is making our temporary emergency rules on import requirements for dairy cattle related to highly pathogenic avian influenza. That rule is being made permanent. So those are both open for comment right now. On a disease front, we've been very busy with highly pathogenic avian influenza in poultry. We still do not have any cases confirmed in dairy cattle. But we have been very busy in poultry. We just detected our, I believe, 5th case this year in a 5th backyard case yesterday. That'll be confirmed next week by USDA and announced at that time. But this one is in Deschutes County. We also have one commercial poultry farm that was infected in October that is just finishing up their disinfection this week. In addition to that, one of our backyard cases also made the national headlines earlier this last month in November by being the first case of this strain of avian influenza being detected in a pig ever. The background on that case was it was a backyard flock that they had some cooney pigs that were free roaming on the property, and one of the pigs was observed to eat a duck that had died, presumably of the virus. And subsequently, that pig, and as well as a second pig that was co-housed with some infected chickens, both did test positive for avian influenza and were euthanized along with the poultry on that farm. Otherwise, we have been keeping busy with that. On the dairy side, we are beginning a statewide surveillance program next week with our first dairy. About half of our dairies will begin testing next week, with the remainder of them coming online throughout the rest of the month to begin doing weekly testing of every dairy in Oregon to ensure that we have the ability to rapidly detect a case should one happen. We have been doing surveillance. We do not have any evidence of disease in our state, but we will be beginning that. And USDA is announcing today that they're going to be beginning a similar program nationally. We'll be one of the first states to implement that. But I think that's everything we have for major updates right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Schultz. We did have a question in the chat, and I believe I can open it up to Dr. Sharice Roth to ask you a question, if that's okay with you.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much for the update, Dr. Schultz. One of the questions that I had were there actually any clinical signs in the swine that tested positive? Are there any things that we need to be looking out for clinically, or was it the history?
Yeah, so that pig was tested based on history, right? When we received the sick bird call, it was reported that that pig had consumed a duck that died. And so when we responded to the farm initially to sample the ducks, we also that technician also sampled the pigs. Whether there were no clinical signs reported by the owner. But I should note that the person who did that investigation was not a veterinarian. So being able to say definitively there were not clinical signs would be hard. I observed the pigs for 4 or 5 minutes in the process of trying to getting them sedated. There may have been mild symptoms. It's hard to say though whether those were mild symptoms or whether those were just stubborn cooney pigs. Not having the history with those pigs to really say. I can say though that in that one pig, when we necropsied the pigs were all necropsied at the OSU Veterinary Diagnostic Lab. The virus was found disseminate throughout the body. There was virus in the brain, lymph nodes. There were several visceral organs not associated with the respiratory or GI tract where there was virus found. It's also hard to know whether that was very early virus that had not had, we found it before there were clinical signs because of the history, or maybe there had been clinical signs that had recovered. We just really don't have the historical information to know that, but it also was one of those situations where we had a pig that had tested positive for a virus that we know we that is the one species we do not allow for this virus to circulate in. So we felt it was more prudent to ensure that it did not have a chance to replicate and mutate in that species.
Yeah, thank you so much. Fascinating case, but just wanted to kind of know if I
Yeah.
needed to be on the lookout for something specific. Thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah, and I should note too, USDA has done a lot of research with pigs and has never been able to infect pigs with this strain. So it turns out that consumption, which we know consumption is a risk factor, that's how almost every other mammal case has happened. So it does seem to be specific to that consumption risk.
Thank you so much, Dr. Schultz, for being here today. And I appreciate the update. Lots of good information from your department. So we'll move on to item number 7, Executive Director Report with Director Burns.
Thank you, Chair Lamb. For this report, we just met in October, and so I'll just be honest, there's not a lot of updates to my report for this meeting. I will essentially point out the first paragraph related to budget numbers is updated, but we are in line with where we've been consistently in terms of our revenue. We've tightened our belt as tight as we can, I think, for now, and we're in a good position. But we've been working, in that vein for a long time now. As you recall, we are looking in July of 2025 of raising fees. That will allow us to do more in terms of training, increasing inspection schedules, and bringing our board meetings back in person. The executive director's report also includes updated 2025 our board meeting dates, and we're looking at April and November as in-person meetings. We would discuss locations, maybe one here in Portland and one regionally, but that's essentially what we have to report this quarter. The budget is good, but we're working very on our very thin margins, and we are looking at those fee increases in 2025 to help give us a little bit more sustainability and able to do more in 2025 and moving forward. Does anybody have any questions as you've reviewed that report?
Any board members with questions for Director Burns today?
And as always, if there's anything you'd like me to focus on in terms of numbers, I've provided more numbers in each of our departments, inspections, licensing, and investigations. If there's anything more you'd like me to focus on, I'd be happy to do that in the future.
Thank you so much, Director Burns. We'll move on to topic 8, which is board elections. I believe you'll be running this topic as well today. Thank you.
I will, thank you. Board members, I sent you an email kind of giving you a heads up as to this topic. Um, under the guidance of our council, it's been suggested, strongly suggested, every year we hold a vote for our officer positions. And as we've discussed for quite some time now, we thought it might be helpful to add an officer position of vice chair. And so we'd like to hold, or we're going to hold a nomination election for both those officer positions. So for the chair and the vice chair, in terms of the board chair position, it can be, in terms of either position, it can be any board member, including our current board chair. And so at this time, we'll accept nominations, first for the board chair and then for the vice chair. Would anyone like to make a motion to nominate the current board chair or anyone else?
I'll nominate the current board chair.
Okay, and we need a second for that, correct?
I'll second.
We got a second there from Natalie. Forgive me, it's been a while since I've run one of these, but we'll get through it. Okay, and so we have a nomination of Dr. Lamb for our chair position. And I'd like to move forward with a vote. I think we need to do this item person by person just to make sure we get that reflected. So I think this is a yes, no vote by board member for our board chair position. So Dr. Rinaldi, yes, no?
Yes.
Natalie?
Yes.
Dr. Hamilton?
Yes.
Dr. Wallace?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Dr. Lamb?
Yes.
I think I covered everyone, correct? Everyone present? Okay, with that, we have affirmed the election of Dr. Chair to continue in her chair position for the remainder of her term. Dr. Lamb will be reaching the end of her term in February of 2026. Yeah. So we got you for a good long while, and we appreciate that.
Thank
I'd
you,
like to
everybody.
continue. Thank you. Sorry to interrupt you there. I'd like to continue with the election of our vice chair, a new position. I think this will be really helpful in supporting the board chair, supporting the board as a whole, and potentially continuing that leadership into 26 and beyond. So at this time, would anyone like to make a nomination for any board member to the vice chair position?
Director Burns, I would like to nominate Dr. Max Rinaldi.
Thank you very much. Anyone second that nomination?
Second.
Okay. Dr. Rinaldi, would you accept that nomination for that position?
I would. Thank you.
Thank you very much. With that, I'd like to conduct the election member by member for the yes/no vote. Dr. Lamb?
Yes.
Natalie?
Yes.
Dr. Hamilton?
Yes.
Dr. Wallace?
Yes.
Ms. Pate?
Yes.
And Dr. Rinaldi?
Yes.
Did I catch everybody? Okay. With that, we have a new vice chair and a continuing board chair. I appreciate you both for stepping into those leadership roles. It's essential. I really appreciate working with Dr. Lamb. I'm looking forward to working with Dr. Rinaldi. We've had a great working relationship so far, and just really appreciate your involvement with the board and your step into leadership. Dr. Lamb, any comments, questions, other things?
Congratulations, Dr. Rinaldi, and thanks for joining the group. I think this will be a really nice opportunity to transition a new person into the, official chairs and vice chair positions and encourage the other board members as time allows to consider one of the positions because you learn a lot from it.
Thank you. I love being part of the board. I love the group. It's been a great experience. So thank you all.
Welcome aboard. I've got a long list of things I'd like you to take on.
Sounds good.
Just kidding. We'll let you ease into it.
All right.
I was just going to turn the meeting right over to him right now and let him just, trial by fire. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding, Dr. Rinaldi. So, all right. Director Burns, did you have anything else with item number 8?
No, I think we're done. Thank you all for letting me get through that. And thanks so much.
Great, thank you. We're going to move down to discussion and action items number 9. We did hear from Dr. Beth Bennett yesterday. She spoke about the AAVSB Veterinary Team Survey Review. So we'll be moving on to item II, which is CVT Work Group from Director Burns.
Thank you so much. And it's a pretty good segue from Dr. Bennett's presentation to this topic and leading into the following topic, the VCPR work group. And I'll go kind of in reverse order. As the VCPR work group wraps up, and we hear from Dr. DeBess in a few minutes about that, we are continuing to commence our next very active and important work group, the CVT work group. And the update at this point, we've talked about this a while as a concept of putting this together as the VCPR work group wraps up. We'll have more bandwidth then to focus on our next project. And that's going to be the CVT work group. What we've done at this point is we've established a chair for this work group, and that's going to be our very own board member, Natalie Mayer-Williamson. She's a CVT and experienced, and her perspective is going to be valuable in driving that work forward. I will support that work group from staff perspective. And right now we've reached out to about 5 or 6 different individuals. A couple more we need to still reach out to, but we've identified 5 to 6 individuals that'll constitute that work group. And what I'd like to do is continue to keep participation at work group open. If anybody is interested or knows someone that's interested, please reach out to me. There's room for more. 5 or 6 is a great number, but there's room for more to get more perspective, more experience, and eventually end up with a better product and better recommendations from that work group. So that's where we are. And I think back to Dr. Bennett's presentation yesterday with all the focus on CVT, scope of practice, and all the other data that AAVSB has put together. I think that will be a great tool to inform the CVT work group. We'll be happy to participate with or coordinate with AAVSB. They're a great resource to reach out to see what's going on in other jurisdictions. So I think they'll be a great resource to support the work group and push that work forward. The timeline for this work group is we're planning to meet hopefully in mid-January for our first meeting, and that meeting will involve pretty much a full comprehensive rule review, just brainstorming ideas and areas of focus, setting our timeline for the work group and other goals. So if anybody has any information related to CVTs, topics that you think the work group should focus on, questions, issues, hurdles, challenges, all of it, please send those to me, and we will we'll address that in the first meeting and start to define our scope of work in that meeting, in that work group. Does anybody have any questions or anything to discuss related to that work group now?
Dr. Burns, we have a comment in the chat from Christina Keefe with the Portland Veterinary Medical Association that just has a request that the OVTAA Board of Directors has representation on the CVT work group. So if that hasn't been considered at this point in time, and I do believe Ms. Mayer-Williamson had unmuted herself at some point, so I don't know if she had a comment as well.
No comment.
Thank you for that, Christina. I'll reach out on that topic. And Dr. Roth, your participation would be welcome. I appreciate your reaching out on that. And Natalie, thanks for taking a leadership role in this. I think you're going to be your perspective is going to be extremely valuable.
Great, thank you so much, Director Burns, and to Ms. Mayer-Williamson for taking on that topic. It's so timely right now, and I expect great things from the work group because it is a great time to be looking at that. So we'll move down to discussion and action items 9.3 little I. And this was with Dr. Emilio de Bess.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you again for having me. I just want to give you a brief introduction to what the veterinary telemedicine group did. So if we think back as to what happened over a year ago, is that the board wanted to have a working group in which they could actually, the working group would consider expanding telemedicine. And with that in mind, we put a group together of individuals that are there. As you can see, many individuals. Dr. Lam, you were one of the chair of the group. Dr. Roth, Dr. McConnell, somebody from OHSU, Dr. Helio de Moraes. I think he attended only one. Darcy Love from the emergency clinic, Christina Keefe from PVMA, Dr. Hurdy and from OVMA, Sarah Harris from the veterinary certified veterinary technician group, Pete and Ingrid, which actually helped putting the document together. Really, I think you all received the document and what we tried to put together. I think the key points here that we want to make clear, not only to the board, but also to whoever's attending, is that this is a proposal to allow to expand telemedicine. This is not a must. This is not something that you have to do. This is something that you could do if you actually find it, that you could actually do it based on your clinical knowledge and the ability that you have to connect with that client and obviously the patient. A lot of it is being done already by behavioralists and by dermatologists and other people. I know I do it in practice. I see a lot of pictures and, then we can decide how to move forward. But really the point here is, one, it's a choice, number one. And number two is really to expand access to veterinary care, especially for people that are underserved and people that may not be able to get to a veterinary practice. I think human medicine has done this very well. And they do understand that not everybody lives in the I-5 corridor that has access to a car and bring their animals to their clinic, but actually there are many people in 75% of the state of Oregon that may not have that choice. So that's first and foremost. We went ahead and talked about, over 3 or 4 different meetings, talked about telemedicine, and we talked about how this could actually how the VCPR could be established via telemedicine. This would actually, we made clear that this is actually that we have guidelines as to how this needs to be done by synchronous video communication, by making sure that the veterinarian can see and can understand what's going on with the animal. That if at any point the veterinarian feels that that's not able to be done, that they actually stop and say, you need to come in or you need to see someone else. We also included the fact that veterinarians must get historical information on this animal as much as possible before actually seeing the animal, and that telemedicine is really a way of helping that animal in any way possible. Sometimes we forget that because we see a lot of people come into our practice, but as I said before, there's many other animals out there that are not getting veterinary care that could potentially gain from this. We did add one additional thing that I wanted to mention, not to make this a very extended presentation, but we're actually making sure that we added that the VCPR can be extended to other veterinarians within the practice, and that's something that I think we've been getting a lot of questions about. So that was included in the VCPR rules that were proposed. So that's kind of in short. Like I said, you do all have the document. You all can read, review, revise, edit, decide how to move forward. But I would really want to thank the people that attended these meetings, that they actually spent the time and energy putting this document together and making sure that there was a lot of thought put into this, that we borrowed from other states, that we know this is happening in other states as well. We're not the first one. And that we just need to grow with a profession and really provide access to veterinary care to those that are underserved or people that are unable to make it to a clinical practice. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Emilio DeBest. I really appreciate, and I want to give credit where credit is due too. You were the chair of this work. You did an enormous amount of work getting everybody to join in and organizing things, and that does not minimize the contributions that everybody else had, bringing a very diverse perspective through multiple lenses to this topic. And I just really want to thank everybody who was on the work group, and especially the staff, Director Burns and Ingrid Nye, for conglomerating the information. At times, I think it was not easy to follow a lot of different trails there because this topic is very large. So I'll open it up to the board members if anybody has any questions for Emilio today, but it looks like this is a pretty big topic that's going to probably need to come back or also go through legal. So we may want to direct, the board may want to also incorporate counsel from our legal department. Dr. Rinaldi, question for Emilio?
Yeah, and thanks for all the work that you guys have put into this. Clearly, I'm sure these conversations were very long and detailed. I did have a question, and this was brought up in public comment as well, of did you guys discuss how this, the conflict that this runs against Code of Federal Regulations? I think it's 21 CFR 530.3. Is that a concern at all? Did that come up?
Yeah, we talked about it. There are some limitations to telemedicine and VCPR, and federal laws obviously is one of them. The other one is health certificates cannot be done by VCPR. So there's a number of limitations that were included in the document in regards to what may or may not be done. And obviously, it is up to the veterinarian to be knowledgeable about the rules that apply to the feds and how that applies to veterinary telemedicine. It is also for the board and potentially for legal counsel to review those and make sure that they align with what we have recommended.
Thank you, Dr. DeBest. Dr. Rinaldi, if you're in support too, I think it might be helpful. I know Director Burns has talked a little bit about reaching out to AAVSB for other conversations and topics, but it might be helpful for us to incorporate AAVSB for how they're managing some of this in other jurisdictions. Director Burns, do you have any more information about that or can add how that would work?
That's always a great resource, and it's always really important to see what's going on in other jurisdictions nationwide and also regionally. We have a little subgroup of regional directors that meet now quarterly, and that's been a really great development, just to make sure that, especially with our neighboring states, that we're all at least comparing notes and being as aligned as we can be. So absolutely, we can continue that, and I also want to reiterate that the board does decide to move forward with potential rulemaking after a legal review. We'll have a public hearing comment as well. So this thing, for good or for ill, this thing is built to kind of evolve slowly, so that we're not rushing or making changes too hastily.
Thank you. Any other board members with questions for Dr. DeBest today about the work group document or any other ideas on that? I also believe we're getting some other information in the chat from Dr. Sharice Roth, if we can put that in the file with the VCPR when we bring it back and kind of look at it in totality.
I also
All right.
wanted, just real quick, I just wanted to recognize we do have a lot of participants here. So thank you for joining today. Thank you, as everyone said, thank you for your work on this work group. And just while we had you, I just wanted to make sure we thanked you all for that work. And yeah, that's it.
Yes. Sorry, with the screen, everyone's gotten to be little tiny squares, so I can't see everybody at this point in time, and I have to scroll through you all. There we go. There's everybody back. All right. So thank you, Dr. DeBest. We really appreciate the presentation. It looks like we'll need to move forward to bringing this back with some more direction. Director Burns, do I need to do a formal motion to give to ask for legal advice, or Mr.
You don't need a motion for that. I think I've been taking notes, and obviously I'll be needing to update Joanna as to what is happening, and she's also aware that there may be a request for advice. So I will let her coordinate with Director Burns on follow-up regarding this issue.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ramirez. All right, discussion action item 9. 4, CET jurisprudence exam, AAVSB fees, and this is with Director Burns.
Thank you, Chair Lamb. So this is a follow-up from a discussion we've had about our exams. We feel it's time to kind of modernize our exams and see what options we have out there. We know AAVSB, one of their services is to administer these exams. So our licensing manager, Brooke Walker, and I met with AAVSB to discuss their service and what they can provide, and it's pretty extensive. They're pretty modern. They've been doing this and doing it well for a long time. So it's something we could engage in. I have a lot more detail on the specifics of what they offer, but what I really want to boil it down to is it's going to increase cost. The exam fees would be $50 per exam, and if there's a retake, it'd be $50 per retake. So, as I said earlier, we need to raise our fees as an agency. We haven't done so in 14 years. While our costs have continued to rise, it's time that we need to do that. But I am extremely conscious of that cost to our licensees and applicants, and so this would be an additional expense for them. I want to be considerate of that. I want to make sure the board is aware of that. So if we were to move forward with AAVSB, there would be additional costs, and I just want to make sure that's really strongly considered. So with that, we also determined in talking with them, and something we had seen is that our exam, the way we're conducting it, does need improvement. We need to modernize it. We need to randomize our questions. We need to make it digital and just use those common practices and examining that we have the ability to rely on. And we also feel we might have some questions we need to review within our exams. Not to talk about them specifically, but we feel like some questions are being missed on a regular basis. So I think we feel we need a review of the exam and a survey of the questions and the answers, and make sure that the product that we have is the best it can be. So that'll be part of this review and modernization of the exam process. If we choose to go forward with AAVSB, they can help us with that. If we don't, we'll look for other resources to modernize that exam. So our goal is to have those specific questions reviewed, and if necessary, written. Board staff will be reaching out to board members on this in the near future. Dr. Borsick is not with us today, but in her role at Portland Community College, she's extremely well versed in pedagogy and exams and curricula. So I think she's a great resource in helping us determine the best way forward in the project. We are also reviewing other exam and testing software I'm reaching out to other boards that have similar requirements for exams and testing and seeing what they use. Kind of get a feel for what others have done to modernize their process so that we can do the same and make our process more modern and appropriate. So in essence, I think at this point, the best thing to do is to reach out to board members individually as we learn more about what our options are, and probably by February come back with some options for either moving forward with AVSB as an option with the increased cost, or moving forward with an alternative resource to help us modernize that exam. Any questions, comments, suggestions? It's a discussion if you guys have things to share at this point.
Thank you, Director Burns. Just a quick point of clarification for the CET exam that the AAVSB would be running that would cost $50. I think our rules say that they'd only take it once anyway. So we'd only be incurring, or the applicant would only be incurring the cost one time in my thought process of how that might pan out. Is that what your thought process is based on the rules?
That is correct. You're correct. That's right. That's an important factor.
And could you speak to the savings of time that our staff might have not administering that test? I don't know, maybe the staff has a better idea of that. Like, would there be a cost savings to the board directly?
I can let Brooke speak to that. She conducts this and administers this, and Brooke?
Yeah, it's built into my day. I assume it would save time. I don't think it doesn't take me that long to run through the exams. I have it memorized. It's pretty quick, but it would save time, sure.
And then my other thought was that this would replace the training that the CETs may be incurring, because this is the one-time test that would exempt them from the training. So it might actually be a cost savings to the CET. I appreciate your concern about, because cost all around has to be saved, especially in this profession right now. But I'm wondering if the cost benefit of this for both staff time as well as the applicant being able to have this expedited route for a cheaper time and training cost would be worth the $50. But I'll open it up to other board members. Does any other board member have a comment or concern about, or a direction that they'd like to see the board go with this? Or the jurisprudence and regional disease exam too? Those are kind of on the table as well. Dr. Wallace, any comments? We'll
just one thought. Is it a lost revenue to us to outsource it? Are we making money on these tests? If not, outsource it. Like, we don't need extra work. Nobody does.
We have other things we could work on, certainly. It's built into our current application costs. So we don't have a separate fee for that. Yeah.
And the CET one is the one that we just reviewed and is new. So it's never been in play before.
Yeah, like I said, I'm all for reducing workload. People got enough to do.
And another cost factor, and I do appreciate, Dr. Lamb, what you're talking about in terms of hidden costs and hidden cost savings too. It's not necessarily just because it's $50 fee that it's going to cost them more money. They save with the training requirements, but the perception is there. I mean, I think our CET cost is $35. And so just, the exam would be nearly twice that but anyway, these are all things that we need to be looking at closely and considering as we move forward. So we'll get some more information, we'll get some more options available, and by February, I think we'll be able to discuss a path forward to modernize this.
Director Burns, is there any, does AAV lock us in for a certain amount of time? Like if we do start and then it doesn't work?
That's a good question. We need to start looking for an exit strategy if we need it, right? I'll look into that.
Okay. Just I'm thinking like cell phones, they lock you in for 2 years, right?
Very
Um,
good
and
comparison too. Nobody wants that.
Dr. Rinaldi, any comments, questions, or concerns, or bring it back to the next meeting? We'll review it again.
I feel very similarly to Dr. Wallace. I think this makes sense to outsource it given everything that's discussed. And it's not like they're asking $500. I think 50 is reasonable.
Thank you, Dr. Hamilton.
I don't really have any concerns with this. I think we should make it as easy as possible.
Ms. Bear Williamson.
I agree. Make it as easy as possible.
Thank you. Ms. Karen Pate.
Yeah, I don't have anything additional.
Thanks. Director Burns, do you feel like we need to bring the CET part back, or is there enough consensus today for a motion to move forward with that, or is there more steps that you need in the meantime? I don't want to expedite it, but I also, or not consider the jurisprudence exam or the regional exam if that's all kind of one package with AABSB.
I'm not sure. I think it'd be prudent to chew on this a little bit and just make sure we move forward with measured steps. Like you said, you know, your question just now about, you know, what are we really locking ourselves into in terms of time? You know, I think there's some unknown questions I'd like answered before we move forward.
That sounds good. So we'll bring it back.
I'd like to ask Brooke. Brooke, do you agree?
I think that would be helpful.
Okay.
Great. Sounds good. We'll bring that topic back then.
Yeah, I think February would be a great timeline to revisit that and see. And by then we'd have some questions answered and a clear path forward.
Thank you. On to discussion and action items 9.5, rulemaking with Inspector Ingrid Nye.
Thank you so much. I'm going to share my screen here again. Okay, hopefully everybody can see that. So the first thing we're going to go over is just our usual update on the various rulemaking things that I've gone through. You'll notice a lot of green on the form today. All of the green indicates rules that have gone all the way through rulemaking and are now final. So those are something that the board has looked at least twice.
Ingrid,
Yes.
can I interrupt you? I'm so sorry to interrupt
Sure.
you. Is there any way you can blow it up just a little bit for our
Yes.
public members?
Yes, I can.
I know everything on the screen gets
Is that
smaller.
better?
That's better, yes.
Okay, I can make it even bigger, I
Maybe a
think.
little bit bigger.
How about that?
You have a little more room. Yeah, that looks wonderful. Thank you so much.
Sure, no problem. And then I'll direct your attention to the items in yellow, which are what we're going to be addressing at this board meeting. For the first one, this is the kind of a placeholder for rule changes that were going to be proposed by the VCPR work group. Obviously, we've had lots of discussion on that so far this morning. So it sounds like we're going to have the AHE take a look and do a little legal review there. But that is staying on the list so that we can just keep that in our sights. The next thing to direct attention to is some language, and we'll be addressing it kind of in detail in a minute, but to clarify when a written prescription must be provided within a certain timeline of a client request. So we'll talk about that in detail in a little bit. And then the last thing on the list is actually something that we're placing on hold. We believe there was a conflict here, and we'd had updates as recently as earlier this week about this. So we are still going to look at this rule, the certification of euthanasia technicians rule, but we'll be just looking at a couple like minor housekeeping items. We had some great feedback from Joanna and from other individuals that have been extremely helpful, and you as well, Dr. Lamb. Yeah, does anyone have any questions about anything on the rulemaking update list today?
Any board members with questions for Inspector Nye?
Okay.
No questions today. Thank you, Inspector Nye. We really appreciate this. Is really helpful. I'm very much a color coordinated person, so I really like the colors. Hopefully it's helpful for our public member attendees to see kind of where the board is come and where the board is going. So this is a nice visual for all of that.
Great.
Moving on to discussion and action item 6, proposed rule change with OAR 875-1. 015-0020 and 875-040-0010. This is again with Inspector Nye.
Yes. Let's see here. And I will blow it up again. Can everybody see that clearly?
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. So what we're taking a look at here, and I don't, as I'm not a veterinarian, I didn't know exactly what would be reasonable. So I really look forward to the board's input. But we do get questions about exactly how many days. I've actually fielded questions from both sides. I've fielded it from a client and I fielded questions from veterinarians prior about exactly how long they have to provide that. So I suggested where the language could go, but I didn't put a number because I, again, would really value the board's feedback on that.
Thank you. I'll move through the room, just so everybody has a chance to speak about the rule here that Inspector Nye has put up on the computer. So Dr. Hamilton, any comments or concerns about proposed language change to this area to include a written prescription and the time frame and suggestions of time frame?
So I guess how are we going to work the time frame part of it? So what if the veterinarian is on vacation out of the country? So how are we going to how exactly are we going to do that? I mean, I guess I'm willing to hear from the rest of the board, but it might be problematic to make a number of days that's good for the pet owner and that the veterinarian can always. How are we gonna work that, I guess, is my question.
Thank you, Dr. Hamilton. Ms. Mayor Williamson?
I was thinking, I mean, wouldn't 30 days be good, like a month, or is that too long?
Ms. Karen Pate?
I think Dr. Hamilton raises a good point, although my first inclination was to say within 7 business days. 30 days seems like a long time if I'm a pet owner trying to get a written prescription. I do think the point about somebody being out of the country on vacation, so forth, we need to accommodate that somehow.
Thank you. Dr. Wallace?
Yeah, my mind goes all over the place with this one because there's some prescriptions 30 days would be fine. There's others that probably need same day. So I struggled in that to make a decision.
Thank you. Dr. Rinaldi?
My first blush, I thought, yeah, three days, that's what we say for sending of records. But thinking about Dr. Hamilton's point, there's a lot of circumstances under which, especially for a refill request, where that might not be a reasonable timeline. I agree. I think 30 days is a little too long. I do have a bit of a different tack that might be relevant, and that is, would failure to provide a prescription within a reasonable timeline for that particular prescription be handled under unprofessional, dishonorable conduct? So, I'm looking at the particular subsection here, but I think it might fit under subsection 4 of that particular rule, and the violation would then be to say, I asked for a written prescription and I didn't get it in a time that's reasonable for this particular disease, or this particular medication, I should say. Would that solve the conundrum of what timeline to put here? I don't know. I'll leave it up to the room.
My gut reaction is clients always think it's an emergency. You know, they forgot their Bravecto, they need it now. And it's, you know, I don't know.
Thank you. Yeah, originally when I looked at this and some of the questions that I am aware that clients and vets have, or you know, how soon should they provide it? My bigger question was whether or not we have to define what a written prescription is, because I feel like we do get some concerns regarding people want the paper, or there's some confusion around it being called in, and that's a written prescription. So I hate to pigeonhole veterinarians into a specific time frame of when they have to write a prescription for exactly the reasons Dr. Hamilton said. People could be out of town, and then we're holding them to something that's not achievable, especially with the VCPR being reviewed and with pharmaceutical changes and regulations about certain things like controlled substances coming down. I think that's more of a policy, an in-house clinic policy, where they know how fast they can, and maybe it's, you know, an outside or written prescription will be provided. Because I feel like the meat and potatoes of this rule was that we were allowing written prescriptions or outside prescriptions to be available to people, not that we were holding veterinarians to a certain time frame. But it looks like there's some comment in the chat as well. It says, is there a distinction between a written prescription handed to the client and one that comes into the practice via online means? Good comment. That's kind of where I was headed. And we are a 5-vet practice and may get 10 to 15 online prescriptions per day. It can take considerable amount of time to get through all those. We are usually in practice getting those out within 24 to 48 hours. Yeah, and that's a 5-vet practice with that turnaround. So I do worry about some of the smaller practices. I don't know, is there any other comments from the board that, you know, board members that have spoke earlier in the conversation, now that they've heard the complete conversation, like Dr. Hamilton or our public member? Anything else?
So Allison, this is Dr. Hamilton.
Yes.
Is there a way we could build those into our, I guess I'm not fully aware of what the Board of Pharmacy requires, but could we build that into our record keeping when we see that animal initially, so that you know, the VCPR basically goes for a year or something, that prescription could be refilled based on that without a physical signature by the prescribing veterinarian? Is there a way that office staff could use the medical record to achieve that for the client?
Yeah, I think maybe we need to look at the Board of Pharmacy and see how they do it in human medicine, and then kind of look at how that goes with our VCPR and the requirements, because obviously the veterinary world has a totally different conundrum of animals also being utilized as food. So I'm sure our regulations are slightly different in regards to, I apologize, I'm not a food animal vet. And so we may have some conundrums with that aligning or not aligning. Is that something, Director Burns, we could get from the Board of Pharmacy, or maybe have somebody from the Board of Pharmacy present to us, or get through Inspector Nye through the Board of Pharmacy some more information?
Certainly, I think that's always a great suggestion where we can align our rules and consider where their rules may have bearing on what we're thinking about doing. But it sounds like we're not probably comfortable with establishing this line as the solution for this. So that would require us bring this back, coordinate with Board of Pharmacy, consider other questions, and maybe the solution is focusing on a fix in other part of rule. Is that accurate?
That sounds great. And this
Ingrid,
might be another time to reach out to AAVSB and see what other jurisdictions are doing as well in requirements to their licensees for this, because I can see where it could go both ways. It could be a burden to the practitioner to even try based on some of the requests that are getting out there.
I didn't mean to jump ahead of on Ingrid too. She chews on this stuff a lot, so she might know more than I do. But Ingrid, did that sound correct, or maybe you've already had some feedback from OBOP?
I have not had feedback from them. This is great suggestions. This is why I'm limited what I can do as staff member, and so that's why the board's input is hugely valuable. So what I'm hearing at this point is that the board would like to direct staff to go seek more information. AAVSB, I know someone had suggested taking a look at the unprofessional conduct rule. And then, what we'll do is just bring it back at a future board meeting with a little bit more information and some other options.
That sounds great. Thank you so much. And also there's a comment in the chat in regards to our VCPR. That was one of the comments that had come up in our VCPR conversation about other veterinarians in the practice. So I didn't want to bowl over that, but that's something that we do have in our packet information. Dr. Rinaldi, I see your hand up.
There was a comment made, which I think would be good to bring back when we revisit this, and that is the clarification of what written prescription means, because I know that's come up from time to time. I think if we're going to open this can of worms, it might be worth making sure that stays part of the conversation too.
Great, I've got that note as well.
Well, thank you.
Thank you for that reminder, Dr. Rinaldi. All right, anything else, Inspector Nye, that we need for that item?
I believe that's it for that item. Thank you so much for the inputs. Very, very helpful.
Okay. And it looks like we're tabling the other rule conversation for now, or am I?
We are going to look at it, but
okay.
the changes that were originally suggested, I know that the document was switched up early this week, so maybe not everyone has had a chance to look at the revised document. But again, we got some really excellent feedback from yourself and from Joanna that really helped the staff kind of understand this is a complicated rule, and so I think when the staff is having different understandings of it, then the public's having different understandings of it. But I think we kind of arrived at a solution that will hopefully make things clear. So let me share the document. Just one second.
That'll be great to put it up on the screen so everybody can see the current.
Let's see here. Okay. Okay, and hopefully everybody can see that clearly. So ultimately, there are two minor changes, but I'll talk about kind of the complicated one first. So what this comes down to is that it was unclear initially to staff about exactly who in this rule, specifically under subsection 5A, was exempted. Oh, sorry, I'm not to 5A yet. Was exempted from needing needed to complete the requirements that are in subsection 4. So we kind of went back and forth about our different understandings of it, but ultimately we determined that the rule that there is a clear answer. We got a great flow chart from Joanna about that kind of walks through exactly the different pathways. So we're good there. But we did, Joanna did suggest that we change training required to requirements, because the word training here creates a lack of clarity about whether or not additional training is required before becoming a permanent CE certificate, become a permanent CET. So that's kind of one change that was suggested by Joanna. And then additionally, these are little housekeeping things. We had used the word DVM here when we made these changes with Dr. Borzyk's input at a couple board meetings ago. But elsewhere in the Veterinary Practice Act, we always use veterinarian instead of DVM. So I'm just suggesting that change for consistency. And then lastly, Again, our CET is a certificate rather than a license, so we're just correcting that so that it's consistent with the language in the rest of the Veterinary Practice Act. Happy to field any questions, and I apologize for kind of the back and forth and the switch out of documents. It's a complicated rule.
Thank you, Inspector Nye. I can appreciate any confusion around this this rule, because this rule has evolved, and then there has been several things, including training changes over the past few years, COVID inserted in there, new staff. So I can totally understand the confusion around this rule, because it is not an easy rule, but everyone's dedication to this rule has not gone unnoticed. And I will open it up to other board members to interject their comments if they would like. Dr. Rinaldi?
I don't think I have much to add at this point.
Thank you. Are you in support of the housekeeping changes?
Oh, sorry, yes.
Thank you. Dr. Hamilton?
I'm in support of the housekeeping changes. Thanks.
Ms. Mayor Williamson?
I support the changes.
Thank you. Ms. Pate? I don't know if we captured your comments or your concerns, Ms. Pate.
Yeah, I'm in support of the changes.
Thank you. Dr. Wallace?
I support the changes.
Thank you. So do we have a motion to make the 3 housekeeping changes? Sorry, we're kind of going back right around the room again, but I want to give everybody an opportunity to actually talk about any concerns as well. So a motion to approve the I will so move to make the changes as Ingrid has presented here today with the 3 housekeeping changes. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Mayor Williamson seconds. All those in favor, Ms. Mayor Williamson?
Aye.
Ms. Karen Pate?
Aye.
Dr. Wallace?
Aye.
Dr. Rinaldi?
Aye.
Dr. Lamb, aye. Dr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Motion passes, and I just realized AAG Ramirez, did I need to move to make that go into rulemaking, or can we just make those housekeeping changes?
You do need to go through the rulemaking process. And so I think with the materials that are on the agenda, I think it was clear that the changes that are being proposed are proposed. You're not the way that you just voted doesn't mean that they're being done effectively. And I think maybe Director Burns was going to address that issue as well.
Okay. I apologize for that. I just jumped the gun since they seem to be more language, grammar versus topic. So Director Burns, do you have more comment on that?
Yeah, I did exactly have that procedural question, and not to put Ingrid on the spot, but I know there's different procedures for if it's just a language change versus a significant rule change, and the requirements are different. Ingrid, do you have a feeling offhand where this one would land, and in terms of timeline and what next steps might be, especially if you feel like this one will need to go public hearing, that step of the procedure?
Yes, so this will need to go to public rulemaking. The window for what's allowed to be a statutory minor correction is extremely narrow, and that's more like if there was a grammatical or spelling error that didn't actually change the content of the rule. And while this is, it won't functionally change very much, it does go outside what we're allowed to do with a statutory minor correction. So we do allow the public to have, we do make the announcement, it goes in the bulletin, and then the public has an opportunity to make a comment. Then the board will probably see it, if not at the next meeting, then at the meeting after that, but I think it probably will be the February board meeting.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, everybody, for that clarification. I know we need to step through that appropriately. And if there's no more need for any additional follow-up on that, then we can move on to discussion and action item number 7. And this is with License Administrator Brooke Walker. And this is just a heads up about applicants that we've received for review.
Yeah, these applicants were reviewed yesterday. yesterday and voted on in executive session.
Thank you. Just to clarify, they were reviewed. We'll vote today in public session on them. Sorry.
Thank you.
All right, Director Burns, any other follow-up to that or questions or comments?
None at all. Thank you, Brooke.
Thank you, Ms. Walker. All right, I think that concludes our discussion and action items in regards to the public conversation. We do have quite a few cases and applicants to vote on today. Is this the time, Director Burns, or do we need a quick break? How would you like to proceed?
I believe we have one more item under applicants for the annual performance progress report. Number item 9.8. Is that not on your agenda?
I apologize. I must have an old copy of the agenda,
Sorry
so
about that.
no worries. I think I did see that and the agenda in my packet, so no problem. I'll just go into that agenda real quick. There it is. So no worries. And 9.8 discussion and action items, annual performance progress report 2024 with OVMA EB Director Burns, if you would like to discuss that.
Thanks so much. And give me just a moment here. I'm going to try to share the screen, which sometimes works for me and sometimes it doesn't. Right now it doesn't want to. Do you see the APPR, the annual performance progress report on your
Yes,
screen?
I can see that on the screen, and I can see that you blew it up enough that I can see the eight.
We'll see. This is a very strange document. Okay, so I just wanted to provide some overview of this document. This is something I think we've seen before, but if we have, we've only glossed over it. I just want to kind of introduce it, and the idea is we're going to check in on this document at least once a year. Okay, so this is the annual performance progress report. This is, sorry, someone's in the waiting room. I'm going to let them in. Okay, this is our annual performance project review. It's also referred to as the KPM report or the key performance measure report. And this morning I emailed all the board members an updated version of this because Dr. Lamb had pointed out a question about some numbers in the first KPM. I'll talk about in just a moment, but I wanted to send you all an updated version of this report so that you have updated numbers. And then that report will be substituted to the board packet for today. And this report needs to be on our website, and it is, but I will substitute the new report for the one that was on there. So these are key performance measures. These are areas that the governor's office, enterprise-wide across all agencies and boards and small commissions, has established these performance measures so that they can take a quick look and see if we're meeting our marks and meeting our goals. They've determined here there's 4 KPMs for us, and it's the number is actually incorrect as I see here, because when I first came on board, there was a KPM number 2, which the governor's office actually licensed. The legislative financial officer determined it wasn't a good measurement for us, so they took that one back. It was sort of related to licensing, but it wasn't very helpful data. So we have these 4 currently. The first is related to public protection, and it's measuring the average time from receipt of a new complaint to the completion of an investigation. So it's measuring that we are wrapping up our investigations in a timely manner. The next is related to customer service, and this is a enterprise-wide written survey that all agencies have to put out. They kind of take lead on developing the questions and what the focal points are for those, and it's been a tool that's been kind of utilized for a long time. And it's basically an online Google page survey that's out there. I'll talk a little bit more each of these in detail. Next, we have our best practices, and this is another survey that you as board members conduct, and we did it at the last board meeting. It's supposed to be done annually, and it's your input on if you think we're meeting our measures. And there's a number, I think 15 or 16 different questions where you answer and say you think we're meeting this mark or we're not. And that goes into KPM number 3. And KPM number 4 is related to facility inspections and making sure that we're meeting those requirements as mandated, and it's an essential part of our mission. There is a new KPM number 5 that will be introduced, I believe, in fiscal year 2025, so July of 2025, and that brings back the licensing focus, but a little bit more practical. It's measuring how fast we, from the moment we receive an application to the moment that license is granted. It's measuring. Sorry, no, that's not correct. Brooke, help me. It's from the moment we receive it to the moment it's finalized and submitted. Is that, you recall that? Is that the KPM?
I think we typically, when I send you the application for approval, to how long it takes for you to approve those applications and run background checks.
Because essentially that's the finalization of the application. Okay. So that's the next one, and that will come online. I believe that'll come online in January. That'll come online in January 2025. So just next month, because there's all these measures. Everything else we do is on a fiscal calendar. These are all on a yearly calendar, which is always a little hard to keep track of. So those are our 4 current key performance measures, and we have 1 more coming online next year. Let me talk about these a little bit more in detail. Is there any questions so far? Okay. So the first one is our KPM related to timely closure of cases. And as you know, we've had an increase in cases, we've had an increase in complaints, and that's represented here in our ability to timely wrap up those complaints. We've also had a increase in people requesting hearings, and that's another factor that slows cases down considerably. And so, as you can see, in 2022, our case closure timeline shot up. And so that what that is saying is in 2022 is an average of 264 days from the moment we get a complaint to the moment it's closed. 2023 is 269. In the previous report, before this one I just submitted to you, it was at 269 as well, because I ran this report right at the beginning of 2024, and it was essentially the same number as 2023. So the first thing I'll point out is now at the end of 2024, we've brought that number down to 236, an average of 236 days per case from complaint to closure. Our target is 180 days. We're not there. But I do want to point out that that's coming down. But the case count is continuing to stay high. We have a lot of cases still coming in, but we are closing them in a timely manner. Some factors to consider is that, again, the increase in hearing requests really bogs this down. That can make a case run from, an additional 90 days just in some of the required notification schedules. So our goal is to get this down. I don't think 180 days is unreasonable. I do want to talk to other boards and determine what is our closure, what is our real closure date. If we've got some outlying cases that are, that are in hearing status for sometimes a year or more, is there a way that we can set those aside as outliers or look at those in a different way? So not trying to cut corners or anything. I think this is a very important measure for us. And I do think that we can get down into a 180-day range. But I just wanted to give you some factors into what these numbers look like. Any questions on this, KPM?
Director Burns, this is Chair Lamb. I was just in regards to the 180 days, you answered my question that you thought that was realistic, and that was going to be my question. I share in that concern that 180 days with all those variables, it is tough to obtain because there's a lot of things that are outside of our control, like scheduling hearings that depend on people's schedules outside our board. So I'd really be interested to know also if that number is similar to other boards in their closure rate. So thank you for looking into that.
Certainly, I can say anecdotally, and from what I know of other boards, everybody struggles with this number. But it's also a data challenge too. I know we have a great number of cases that are closed well under 100. I mean, this is an average, so you know how that works. But I think there's some things we can do to kind of review how we factor these numbers, what cases we're looking at, kind of, as I said, really identifying some of these cases that are just really outliers, just different category of cases altogether. Sometimes it's essentially they're in a de facto state of closure, and they're just waiting for some final signatures, and you're trying to track people down and get a hold of attorneys, and it can just drag on. So I don't think 180 days is unreasonable. I think we can get there, and I think between last year, this time, and this year, we are starting to see some improvement on that. And I also want to say, and I think the board understands, our investigators do a great job of getting through these cases, an incredible caseload, but they really give each case its due course, and they take it through asking the follow-up questions, taking it to the board and bringing it back when necessary to dig even further. We don't want this target to take away from the diligence of the investigation either. Okay, if there's no other questions, I'll move on to the next. Okay. PPM 2, which says 3 here because of a little typo there. But this is our our customer service survey. This is something every board does. Again, anecdotally, these are pretty similar numbers to other small boards, agencies, and commissions with similar missions. One thing I'll point out that Dr. Lamb asked about was 2023 is a 0. We didn't actually conduct this survey in 2023. When I came on board, it was unclear how the survey was being tracked, how it was being promoted. We had an incredibly small number of participants, and I really questioned the data. So in 2023, we paused on that, and we set some just standardizing criteria for the year 2024. And what we did is we put that website in our signatures, or we put the link to the survey in our signatures, and we put it on our website. We didn't really broadcast it because I think there's still some work to be done to make this survey a little bit better. But I did want to get a 2024 starting point, and that's where we are now. Each of these, and I don't think this has the questions. It does not. It just has the categorical areas, and so they're focused on accuracy, expertise, availability of information, helpfulness, timeliness, and overall success. As we develop this, I mean, you can take the surveys; it's still live and updated, and available. But I don't know if the questions per se need adjustment, but I think the way we promote it and the way we put it out there to folks can be better. But we're getting broader participation. As it is now, I think the people that take the survey is often the case, are usually when people are upset. Few people are kind of contacting and looking to find a way to give us positive feedback, but that's what it is. These are our numbers. This is our starting point. I'd like to get this survey out to more people so that we're getting a better, a more accurate data set. I believe the last time I looked at this, probably a month ago or so, there was maybe 8 to 10 um, um, surveys completed for all of 2024. So, any questions on this? Suggestions? And you can let me know that now, later, whenever. If you've got ideas, I'm open to them. Okay, moving on. Okay, this is our best practices survey. This is a survey you guys did in October. And again, it took a little bit of time in the first couple of years to bring this practice back online and kind of put it back in your field of view. It was a little clunky at first with just kind of a paper product that I emailed you, you filled out, sent back to me. We were back and forth trying to collect those things. We modernized that with a web version of the survey. In 22, 23, those were close to 100%. I think, if I recall, one of them was a lack of, just a couple little items where board members didn't receive some information related to budget. We brought that back online. Now you guys are getting those regular updates, and now everyone, according to the last survey, feels like we're meeting all the marks. The criteria are right here below. I included it here so you can review it if you have questions. I provided additional context and information for each one. I think this really reflects the board as a whole and our communication. I really appreciate the communication with this board. I can reach out to Dr. Lamb with any issue. I reach out to board members. I feel like they can reach out to me if they need something. I really appreciate that. I think communication is the key to a lot of these measures. Any questions on this topic? All right. Okay, that last one is inspections. The percent of registered veterinary facilities inspected within 3 years of last inspection. Now, inspections are a complicated goal for our agency. We have multiple facilities, 708, I believe, at last count. That number fluctuates, but it's down in the same ballpark. But got to get around the state. We have physical inspections, on-site inspections. We have virtual inspections. They have different timelines and targets. We have follow-up inspections for investigative reasons and things like that. So, and we have a relatively new inspector with Inspector Nye. She's been with us a little over a year. She's come on board. She's jumped in to both inspections, and as you've seen earlier today, in her role as our rulemaking coordinator. And she's done a great job of getting up to speed. First, utilizing our virtual inspection tool, our toolkit, where we can do a virtual inspection where necessary. But we really are trying to bring back those on-site inspections, and she's done a good job of getting those up to speed as well. So a lot of that information here in our factoring results explains that historical context. But Ingrid's really stepped into this role. She's ready to move forward. She's been doing inspections really well. And we're very near our targets. And I think we'll be at that 100% range just in time as we kind of fine tune the logistics of getting around the state. Ingrid, I don't mean to put you on the spot here, but this is kind of your area of expertise. Did you have any other comments or anything you'd like to share related to inspection?
I don't have anything additional to share, other than to say, I don't know if you addressed too that there was like a piece of time that no inspections were conducted, although Brenda did do an absolutely huge amount before she retired, like basically as many as could possibly be done, with the exception of 20 or so that she wasn't able to contact. And then, but during that piece of time, obviously the backlog did built up. So we are still working through that backlog, and then also just kind of the slower pace that I adopted early on because I wasn't I wasn't trained up, and now I am. So we're going more quickly. That's all I would add.
Thank you so much, and I appreciate that. That's an absolute important factor. You know, there was a time there was a fair amount of time we had no inspector, and then obviously when Ingrid came in line, there was online. There was a lot of training and planning. So, but thank you for stepping into that role so well, Ingrid, and taking lead on that and getting us so close to our target. Any questions on this KPM? Okay. Lastly, as I said, and this actually should be on there. It says a proposed KPM, which is the new KPM that's coming online in 25, related to licensing. And again, that measure is really focused on making sure that we are processing applications in a timely manner. And just from our initial data from a year ago to now, I think we've done a good job we have historically done a good job in processing applications once they're complete. But from a year ago, the average was between 5 and 7 days from completion, from submission to completion, to now 3 to 5 days. And I think if we really look at the numbers, we're closer to 3 days. The process is essentially Brooke takes this, processes it goes through a background check, which is most often done within a day or two. And then it goes for final approval and signature from me. Brooke's done a great job of taking that on. We've looked for ways where we can modernize that and streamline it. But the essential point here is because I feel like sometimes that is not the perception that's out there with licensees. You know, they're often feel like they're waiting and not, you know, what's going on with their application. The key point is our starting point is when that application is complete. So we're trying to do a better job too of letting licensee or applicants know, you know, you may think your application is complete, but it's not. We're still waiting for this document. But a lot of times that's where the hang up is. They say, well, I submitted my application, you know, 2 weeks ago. Well, that application, the timeline on that has not started because we're still waiting for essential required documents to for that application to be complete. So I think we can do a better job of letting licensees know that there's something that we're waiting for them on. But once that application hits that completion mark, we've got a good system in place, and Brooke's really on top of getting those things through and dragging them across the finish line, as we often say. So that's a KPM that's coming, but I just want to kind of give you some context to that. Any questions on that or any other measures in this report?
Director Burns, this is Chair Lamb. I just wanted to thank you as well as the staff that support all of these measures, and your leadership has been not unnoticed as we've moved forward and moving these numbers up, and the staff's commitment to driving forward has been great on these measures. So I really appreciate you going over the annual report with us today and sharing with us the improvement that we've made over the year.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that because I admire your leadership as well. As I said before, the whole board of the team. But I do want to provide just a little more context here. This is a report that I primarily put together for the governor's office and DAS. And so I don't always think about it in terms of bringing this to the board and making sure you're up to speed on these things. My executive director's report is where I really like to try to focus on the things we're focused on. And so I do need to bring those things more closely in alignment because they do go together. On the ED report, I really like to make sure you guys are seeing numbers in terms of inspections, in terms of licensing, and in terms of investigations. And these are the same focal points, just with a little bit different context and kind of goal setting. So I don't plan to bring this to the board more than once a year. I will bring it to the board if I see that there's some issues or things like that. But I just want to, I'm going to do a better job of keeping the data on the executive director's report more in line with these KPMs. I may even throw in a little KPM snapshot in that report so you can see these things and it doesn't escape our memory, so that when we look at it next year, we won't have to recall what this is. Thank you all.
Thank you. And I'm sure our public members appreciate the transparency on these numbers too, because it's sometimes hard to see from the other side. I know. It's nice to know how long things are taking. So, all right, I think that does conclude our discussion and action items. I did just want to bring attention. There were a couple comments made in the chat after our VCPR discussion, and I just want to make sure the board members were apprised of the conversation that was happening over there, and that any of that conversation got captured by staff before the end of the meeting for our continued VCPR discussion in the future. And with that, Director Burns, I'll move into voting. Is that where you're at with staff as well?
Yes, and I understand Dr. Wallace has to leave. Dr. Wallace, do you have time to conduct our voting segment? If not, I think we'll still have quorum with 5.
I can't hear you.
I said, I'll do what I can.
Okay, thank you so much. I know you've got a situation there.
Pete, I'm going to jump down then to a couple of the cases where I know that we need to have Dr. Wallace present for, if that sounds good to you. All right, so I'm going to jump to, in case 2023-0167, I, Allison Lamb, move to close the case. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Mayor Williamson seconds. All those in favor, Ms. Mayor Williamson?
Aye.
Karen Pate?
Aye.
Dr. Wallace? You're recused from this case for the record.
Aye.
You're recused from this case.
Perfect.
2023-0167. Dr. Wallace recused. Dr. Rinaldi?
Aye.
Dr. Lamb, aye. Dr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes. In case 2024-0100, I, Allison Lamb, move to close the case. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Mayor Williamson seconds. All those in favor, Ms. Mayor Williamson?
Aye.
Ms. Karen Pate?
Aye.
Dr. Wallace?
Aye.
Thank you. Dr. Rinaldi?
Abstain.
Dr. Lamb, aye. Dr. Hamilton? We didn't.
Aye.
Thank you, Dr. Hamilton. Motion passes. Sorry, there's one more. Oh, in case 2024-0020 A and B, is there a motion to close the case?
I so move.
Dr. Rinaldi moves. Do I have a second?
Dr. Hamilton seconds.
Dr. Hamilton seconds. All those in favor, Dr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Ms. Mayor Williamson?
Aye.
Ms. Karen Pate?
Aye.
Dr. Wallace? Dr. Wallace, can you repeat? Sorry, it cut out.
Aye.
Thank you. Dr. Rinaldi?
Aye.
Dr. Lamb is recused. Dr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Motion passes. All right, jumping back up to the top, in case 2023-0166A, I, Allison Lamb, move to amend the prior motion and propose a $1,000 civil penalty and costs for violations of OAR 875-011-001014, OAR 875-015-00302 little c, OAR 875-015-00304 little j, and OAR 875-011-00107. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Karen Pate seconds. All those in favor, Ms. Karen Pate?
Aye.
Dr. Wallace,
Aye.
Dr. Rinaldi,
Aye.
Dr. Lamb, aye. Dr. Hamilton,
Aye.
Ms. Mayor Williamson,
Aye.
motion passes. In case 2024-0116, I, Allison Lamb, move to deny the license application. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Mayor Williamson seconds. All those in favor, Ms. Mayor Williamson,
Aye.
Ms. Karen Pate,
Aye.
Dr. Wallace,
Aye. Thank you. I'm out. If you need me, just text me.
perfect. Thank you, Dr. Wallace. Dr. Rinaldi,
Aye.
Dr. Lamb, aye. Dr. Hamilton,
Aye.
motion passes. In case 2024-0133, I, Allison Lamb, move to grant a license. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Karen Pate seconds. All those in favor, Ms. Karen Pate,
Aye.
Dr. Rinaldi,
Aye.
Dr. Lamb, aye. Dr. Hamilton,
Aye.
Ms. Mayor Williamson,
Aye.
motion passes. In case 2024-0139, I, Allison Lamb, move to approve the applicant to take the VT&E. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Mayor Williamson seconds. All those in favor, Ms. Mayor Williamson,
Aye.
Ms. Karen Pate,
Aye.
Dr. Rinaldi,
Aye.
Dr. Lamb, aye. Dr. Hamilton,
Aye.
motion passes. I, Allison Lamb, move to close the following cases: 2023-0100, 2024-0013, 2024-0015, 2024-0021A and B, 2024-0061, 2024-0075, 2024-0086, 2024-0087, 2024-0095, 2024-0101, 2024-0113, 2024-0106, 2024-0109, 2024-0121, 2024-0127. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Karen Pate seconds. All those in favor, Ms. Karen Pate,
Aye.
Dr. Rinaldi,
Aye.
Dr. Lamb, aye. Dr. Hamilton,
Aye.
Ms. Mayor Williamson,
Aye.
thank you. Motion passes. In case 2023-0127B, I, Allison Lamb, move to offer a settlement agreement with completion of a 10-hour continuing education course in medical records within 6 months of issuance of the agreement and review of records within a year of completion of the class for violation of OAR 875-015-00302 f. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Dr. Rinaldi seconds. All those in favor, Dr. Rinaldi,
Aye.
Dr. Lamb, aye. Dr. Hamilton,
Aye.
Ms. Mayor Williamson,
Aye.
Ms. Karen Pate,
Aye.
thank you. Motion passes. In case 2023-0128B, I, Allison Lamb, move to close the case. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Mayor Williamson seconds. All those in favor, Ms. Mayor Williamson,
Aye.
Ms. Karen Pate,
Aye.
Dr. Rinaldi,
Aye.
Dr. Lamb, aye. Dr. Hamilton,
Aye.
motion passes. In case 2024-0092, I, Allison Lamb, move to close the case. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Karen Pate seconds. All those in favor, Ms. Karen Pate,
Aye.
Dr. Rinaldi,
Aye.
Dr. Lamb, aye. Dr. Hamilton,
Aye.
Ms. Mayor Williamson,
Aye.
thank you. Motion passes. In case 2022-0017, I, Allison Lamb, move to close the case. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Mayor Williamson seconds. All those in favor, Ms. Mayor Williamson,
Aye.
Ms. Karen Pate,
Aye.
Dr. Rinaldi,
Aye.
Dr. Lamb, aye. Dr. Hamilton,
Aye.
motion passes. In case 2023-0159, I, Allison Lamb, move to close the case. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Karen Pate seconds. All those in favor, Ms. Karen Pate?
Aye.
Dr. Rinaldi?
Aye.
Dr. Lamb, aye. Dr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Ms. Mayor Williamson?
Aye.
Motion passes. In case 2024-0014, I, Allison Lamb, propose to assess a $2,000 civil penalty for 8 violations of ORS 686.0201 little a. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Mayor Williamson seconds. All those in favor, Ms. Mayor Williamson?
Aye.
Ms. Karen Pate?
Aye.
Dr. Rinaldi?
Aye.
Dr. Lamb, aye. Dr. Hamilton?
No.
Motion passes. No. Director Burns, I don't believe that one.
Believe with our current board member count, it would not.
Okay. Motion does not pass. In case
That's a question.
Go ahead, AAG Ramirez.
So, I understand I'm not as familiar with your board. A majority of your members is a quorum. I believe currently there are 5.
Correct.
And the motion was 4-1, as I counted. Do you not consider that a passing motion with the majority of with the quorum that you have?
I would agree with your statement. I thought we had to have 5 for a motion to pass, but I could be incorrect on that. I don't know if I've triaged the situation.
Thank you, Mr. Ramirez, for stepping on this. We've come close to this before, but I don't think we've ever been here before. We don't usually have this many board members missing. So I think you're right, and we can take your guidance on this. Your interpretation of that, I think, is accurate.
Yes, and I do want to be clear to the extent that you may have been provided guidance by Joanna on this issue. I don't want to be in a position of contradicting her. I know that, so I think that the case that you were on, if it's not unanimous, the motions that are made don't have to be unanimous. But if you do have, I guess, a general practice of reaching consensus, then you would have to potentially take the case back in executive session to discuss. Otherwise somebody would need to make another motion, and then you'd have to, again, see how the votes come out. But I believe the 4-1 would be a passing motion, the way I interpret your statute.
Absent members are no votes. They're not positive or negative.
Director Burns, do I need to redo the vote then, or does it pass, or do we bring it back?
I'm confident we're good to move forward with the 4-1 passage.
Okay.
We should re-vote on that then, because of the way I had misstated that. Is that correct, Mr. Ramirez? Do we re-vote on that?
Is that a question for me? I'm sorry.
We should re-vote on that.
You can. I counted the vote as 4-1. So if you
just a moment. So I'm sorry. So I just got an email forwarded over from Joe from what our investigator. Sorry, just a moment, please.
Mm-hmm.
Pete, you're muted if you're talking to us.
Thank you. Sorry. I'm going to forward Joanna's email with motions from yesterday at 2:40. If you look at that, it was sent to Chair Lamb and included Mr. Ramirez. And it indicates 5 affirmative votes are needed to pass a motion. So, with that, I wonder, does this motion not pass? Or will we table this and bring it back when we have a full board?
Pete, this is Karen. Is there any chance we could contact Dr. Wallace?
That's a good point. Let's see if she's doing. She's available and she's going to log back on in just a moment.
Thank you, Director Burns, for reaching out to her.
Dr. Wallace, can you hear us?
Looks like she's back on at this point.
Dr. Wallace, hi, can you hear us? We cannot hear you if you can hear me.
Dr. Wallace, are you on mute still, or it doesn't look like you are, but I don't know if you can hear us. So she's in the chat. Oh, she's going to try her phone.
Thanks so much. Appreciate you jumping back on. Okay, Dr. Wallace, can you hear us there?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Actually, loud and clear. Thank you so much. So I think if we just read through again and take another vote on, or another pass on that, review of that motion, I think we'll be good.
Perfect. Just for the record, it's Friday, December 6th at 10:51 a.m. Dr. Wallace is back on our call with us. And in case 2024-0014, I, Allison Lamb, propose to assess a $2,000 civil penalty for 8 violations of ORS 686.0201 little a. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Dr. Rinaldi seconds. All those in favor, Dr. Rinaldi?
Aye.
Dr. Lamb, aye. Dr. Hamilton?
No.
Miss Mare Williamson?
Aye.
Miss Karen Pate? Miss Pate, we didn't hear your response.
I'm sorry. Aye.
Thank you. Dr. Wallace?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes. In case 2024-0091, I, Allison Lamb, move to propose a $250 civil penalty and cost for a violation of OAR 875-015-00403 little f capital F. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Miss Mare Williamson seconds. All those in favor, Miss Mare Williamson?
Aye.
Miss Karen Pate? Miss Pate?
Aye.
Thank you. Dr. Wallace?
Aye.
Dr. Rinaldi?
Aye.
Dr. Lamb, aye. Dr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Motion passes. In case 2024-0096, I, Allison Lamb, move to close the case. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Miss Karen Pate seconds. All those in favor, Miss Karen Pate?
Aye.
Dr. Wallace?
Aye.
Dr. Rinaldi?
Aye.
Dr. Lamb, aye. Dr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Miss Mare Williamson?
Aye.
Motion passes. In case 2024-0118 A and B, I, Allison Lamb, move to close the case. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Miss Karen Pate seconds. All those in favor, Miss Karen Pate?
Aye.
Dr. Wallace?
Aye.
Dr. Rinaldi?
Aye.
Dr. Lamb, aye. Dr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Miss Mare Williamson?
Aye.
Motion passes. In case 2024-0122, I, Allison Lamb, move to close the case. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Dr. Rinaldi seconds. All those in favor, Dr. Rinaldi?
Aye.
Dr. Lamb, aye. Dr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Miss Mare Williamson?
Aye.
Miss Karen Pate?
Aye.
Dr. Wallace?
Aye.
Motion passes. That concludes our voting for today. Director Burns, is there anything else that you have on the agenda or last minute things that have come up?
I think that's all. I just wanted to thank everyone, especially public participants, for joining today. That makes our meetings more robust and meaningful. And of course, to our board members, staff, AAG Ramirez, thanks for your support today. And you, Dr. Lamb, for guiding us through our meeting so quickly today. We are done in record time. And so we'll probably be turning over the majority of your day to you. So let's remember this when we get those days, those meetings when we have 40 plus cases and we're going late into both Thursday and Friday reviewing cases. So it's nice to have these lighter days where we get through things so quickly. So thank you all so much for your time and efficiency today.
Yes, thank you, Director Burns, AAG Ramirez, staff of the board, board members. I do want to just put one extra little thank you in to Miss Karen Pate. I know she did spend some time working on some documents to edit them, and we always appreciate her editing abilities. That does not go unnoticed by any means, especially coming from somebody who's not a great editor. So it really does take a collaborative effort in this, the board and with the staff. And I just want to thank everyone for a wonderful year. We'll see you next year, hopefully, if we don't have any surprises in the next 3 weeks. enjoy your holidays, and I wish you all the best for a happy, healthy new year.
Thank you.
Thank you.